Grok 3 is here, and it's interesting. I had high hopes for this model because the hype machine for it's been pretty nuts. I even watched the live stream and I saw this slide that seemed super promising. Apparently Grok 3's reasoning model is even better than O3 Mini High and O1. Wow. If these numbers are real, that's a pretty wild accomplishment. Big if, though, because the reasoning model they're showing off here is not publicly available. The more traditional model is, as well as a thinking version of that more traditional model. And I've had an interesting experience trying to get it to perform well. I do think there is something interesting going on with Grok. I just am struggling to figure out what it is because my experience has been weird. I want to show you just how weird, but first, a quick word from today's sponsor. Today's sponsor is Augment Code, and it might just look like yet another AI tool assistant extension for VS Code. I promise you this one's actually very, very different. You might notice that there's already text here. That's because I'm actually using it to figure out how certain code bases work. When I was building my search engine a few days ago, I wanted to figure out how the examples that already existed were handling parsing of certain formats. So I just asked this, where does the bang get parsed? And since it keeps track of your entire code base, yes, entire thing, even a giant enterprise-sized code base, that's kind of their specialty, it was able to look at the code and find the exact code I was looking for. I didn't have to tag files. I didn't have to manually help it figure out where things are. It indexed my whole code base, and now I can ask it questions and get answers in literally half a second or less. It's insane. And to prove how insane it is, I'm going to switch to a different code base, a little bit bigger a code base. This here is the entire React code base. It's giant. It literally took me like 5 minutes to download because it's like 600 megabytes. And right when it's done syncing, it gives you a little summary of what is where and what different parts exist. It calls out that there's a whole separate set of things for compiler from packages React. But now I can ask it questions about React. It even suggests a few. So I can ask it, what is React compiler? I can ask it, how do the dev tools work? Let's ask it something a little bit harder. Where is the code that allows for server-side rendering? And now it's going to hunt and find whatever code is in this code base, already getting answers to show us the code that handles server-side rendering. Here's the React DOM legacy server node that lets you render to string. Here's the modern SSR render implementation. It even gives me little bits of info here too, where it says that this is the core implementation, but there's a modern streaming SSR implementation. There's also a flight server component implementation. And it gives you all of these little breakdowns. And when you click them here, it actually highlights the correct part. It's really good experience overall. And not just for us VS Code people either. They actually have a good NeoVim plugin, believe it or not. Augment's already in use at big companies with giant code bases, like you see here, Webflow, Lemonade, and more. They've all reported massive wins, in particular for onboarding engineers to big code bases and trying to figure out what's going on where. It's a way better starting point for most devs to actually onboard into a code base with. And if you're not working on one of these big companies, but you are working on open source, it is fully free for open source developers. You don't need to take my word for it, though. Check them out today for free at soydev.link/augmentcode. So I could spend a lot of time talking about the math and science side. We need to be honest, I'm not qualified for that. What I am qualified for, though, is this code side here. And apparently, it's pretty good at coding. Apparently, supposedly. My experience has been a little bit different. So I spent a decent bit of time prompting it, trying to do everyone's favorite bouncing ball spinning test. This is the prompt. Write a Python program that shows a ball bouncing inside a spinning hexagon. The ball should be affected by gravity and friction, and it must bounce off the rotating walls realistically. Gonna grab the first version that it did here and throw it in here, Grok 3 v1.py, paste it. And before I run that one, I'm gonna show you guys the Claude version. Here's the Claude version to get an idea of what this test is supposed to show. There's a ball, bounces around inside of the hexagon, meant to have realistic physics. So things like it should bounce to the bottom, it should bounce, it shouldn't fall out of this because it's inside of the hexagon, just traditional expectations. And I can also show you guys the version that was made with O3 Mini, which is a lot bouncier. They screwed with the gravity more, but probably my favorite of the tests I did. So if this new Grok model is even better, it should perform great here, right? UV run games / Grok 3 v1. In case you missed that, let's do it once more. Seems like math, physics, and code are a little hard for Grok 3. Need to be honest though, this wasn't the thinking version because at the time, this think button didn't exist. So I reran this with the thinking version, which, by the way, doesn't show here anymore. Took over 2 minutes. I'll run this again just so you guys can see it. Copy, new, there, make sure it's on think for Grok 3. And while that's thinking, I'll show you the code it generated the first time. It seems to have gaslit itself into reversing gravity, and the ball disappears up now. I don't even know. This is still running, so let's do one interesting test, something I was just thinking of. So we're going to take the original attempt, and I'm going to tell Cursor to fix it. The ball escapes the container. Fix it. I'm very curious if it's able to fix this. Okay. It tried. It gave it an honest go. Yeah, this code doesn't seem particularly recoverable. It is rough. I haven't given it a thorough audit, but the quick read through I did give it, it seems to be really interested in the vertices and using those as the point of reference, not the actual like bouncing mechanic. And the intersection code is rough. Still thinking, by the way. This is all real time. We're 131 seconds into the thinking here. It has to think a lot about this problem, doesn't it? And just for reference, I'm going to copy the prompt, go to t3.chat, switch this over to O3 mini high, paste, post, see how long that takes instead. You know what? While we wait for that, let's do one other fun thing. We're going to go turn on one of the other faster models because we now have a ton of models offered on T3 chat. The DeepSeek Quen distilled model flies. So let's use that one. Still streaming in. Go here. Apparently they're having some issues with the info right now for R1, or not for R1, for Grok with a Q, by the way. Grok with a Q, really good. Grok with a K, questionable. Grok with a Q is a company that focuses on the actual infrastructure for doing faster inference, and their inference is nuts. Like, see how fast it did all that with reasoning, by the way? I'm curious how that performed, though. Let's go throw that in. Before we do that, let's double check and make sure. Oh, Grok finished, finally. So let's do R1 when grok.py. This is a hard problem, to be fair, so I'm curious. Fun that the thinking models can't solve a problem that Claude can. This has kind of blackpilled me on Claude a bit. I see the value. The fact that it's the only one of these non-thinking models that can do this one is fascinating. Grok thinking v2.py. UV run. Oh, by the way, UV has made using Python bearable again. Holy hell. How does anyone deal with pip anymore? I don't get it. Did it gaslight itself into putting the ball outside? Oh, man. This fucking model, man. Oh, did I break this by changing pages? I did. I switched that to low accidentally. Retry with high once more. Yeah. What a wild world we live in. Thinking more and more that our jobs might be secure after all, as long as our jobs are making a ball bounce in a hexagon. Okay. Now they reran it. The O3 mini high is doing a little faster. Still sad they don't expose the thinking data over the API. I promise you guys, the moment they do, you'll have that in our UI. It's also so nice having a good, fast platform for doing all this inference and switching between models so easily. Like, yeah, I'm showing off my own product, but it's a good product, guys. I've been using a lot of these sites a lot more. It's bad. O3 mini high 2.py. Paste and see. Despite being comically faster. Wow. It did a bad job the second time. Fascinating. Very interesting that it would fail the second time when the first time it had my favorite option. Do I have to run Claude once more to be fair? I think I do. Claude v2.py. Let's see if it also failed the second attempt. What the hell? What's going on? Am I in the Twilight Zone? What happened? How did everything get it right first try and now it's not? Okay, I'm going to try something that's going to be annoying. I'm going to try it on the Claude website. God, I hope it doesn't work here. Oh, God, that was a loading spinner. Yeah, to everyone saying T3 chat isn't necessary. All the other sites are fast. Did you guys see that? That was pathetic. That took like over 5 seconds. And yeah, the gradients, the good old Firefox effect. Pondering. Is that like thinking but more expensive and not as good? Sorry, I have a gripe on Claude. It's so expensive for what it is. We're going to talk about price in depth on all this in a minute. I'm paying for Claude, by the way. Yeah, so I guess if you want a version of Claude that actually runs, actually answers your questions, is half as expensive, and doesn't take forever to open, T3 chat might be a good option. But, God, I can't believe it actually just did that while I'm recording. I don't... What? What is this UI? I don't like the artifact thing where it always pops out. We're considering adding it to T3 chat. I will never force it. I don't love it. Cool. Now we have code. Copy. I was going to paste over this one. What did it bounce on there? Okay, I swear when I did this, when I made all these files initially, the O3 mini one was the first run, and the Claude one was the first run, and it worked fine on all of them. First try, one shot. I don't know what's going on. Did Elon spend all his money to rig all of these with bad data over the last 48 hours or something? God damn. I know it's just random chance, but like I have my history here. You can see this one was with Gemini. The Gemini one bombed. I'm not going to pretend otherwise. Next one was with O3 Mini High. This was the first try on it. This is the code. I can show you. It's the same code I was showing at the start. Main simulation, update. It's the same code. That was first try. Theoretically, could have deleted things or whatever. No, didn't. This was the Claude 3.5 one that also worked. I guess I just had like multiple good rolls in a row. That all said, I've yet to get a single working version out of Grok. I haven't really gotten any working code out of Grok. I tried some advent of code problems and it hallucinated a bunch and the TypeScript didn't compile. That would, and to be fair, this would all be fine if the pricing was good. They haven't released the API pricing for V3 yet. They did announce a new paid sub for accessing it on their website, though. But if we look at the pricing here, $2 per million in, $10 per million out for both the Vision and the non-Vision versions. That puts it at roughly the same pricing as something like 4.0, and pretty close to the pricing for something like O3 Mini. If we look at my gist of pricing that I try my best to maintain with the current prices of things. 4.0 is slightly more expensive for input tokens, about the same price for output. 3.5 Claude, 50% higher on all regards. Way higher quality overall, 50% higher pricing. Obviously, DeepSeek's hilariously cheap. Flash and Flashlight, hilariously cheap. It just kind of feels like a miss that they would put what they built here, and it's more expensive than O3 Mini when O3 Mini is a significantly better model. That just feels like a very weird move that they did. I don't get it. It really feels like what they're building is less trying to be revolutionary, more trying to just egg on their enemies over at OpenAI. And that makes me sad because I know there's some really good people there. Good enough that they shouldn't have been shipping a test mode checkout flow with their Stripe key. When I tried to subscribe to the new tier, it brought me to the XAI Dev test mode Stripe. And believe me, I know setting up Stripe isn't easy. I'm like the industry expert in explaining why it's not easy to set up Stripe, right? How the hell did you push your test keys to prod? What? Yeah, there's also the person who mentioned that Grok 3 would be bad at code and got fired right before, who worked on Grok at the time. Hilarious. Oh, is X being at the Stripe conference? That's cool. I've had a really good experience with Stripe, especially since I started complaining publicly. I've been chatting with them a bunch. They had me come in to give a presentation and shit. It's been really cool. I have high hopes for those guys. But yeah, like, what? What? I still can't get over how long the thinking took. I forgot to check with the one that we just ran. 196 seconds for a solution that renders the ball outside of the hexagon. What? God, I'm going to go insane. Yeah, I don't get it. Like, Grok had potential. It's just not there. There is one cool thing they're doing, and I want to call this out because I wish more companies would do this. So Grok has their models. They have like the Grok beta, and they have Grok 2. And now they have multiple Grok 3 models. They have Grok 3, the Grok 3 reasoning and whatnot. The interesting thing they're doing is drawing a line for whatever the most recent, like their flagship model is. Everything above this line will become OSS. Not full open source, but at least open weight. And I like this a lot. They've officially said they plan on open sourcing all of the models that aren't their current breakthrough, state of the art. So eventually when Grok 4 happens, at least if my understanding of what Elon said is correct, the line will get moved and Grok 3 will become open source. I like this a lot, and I would really like to see more companies, OpenAI, wink, wink. Be nice to see other companies take the opportunity when new models come out to do that. And if a certain other company was to do this, it could change everything. Imagine if these were a slightly different name. If Claude 4 dropping results in 3.5 going open source, Anthropic's running the entire game again. I don't know if they have the balls to do that, but if they could actually make a better model than what they have with 3.5 and then take their previous model that was still industry leading and open source it, whew, that would burn so many people's businesses down. A real fun thing that happened a few days ago, actually, I think it was yesterday, they posted a new benchmark. When I say they, I mean OpenAI. They just put out this, what I think is actually a pretty cool benchmark, the SWE Lancer. This is an interesting new way to do benchmarks because, as Sam said a whole bunch, the existing benchmarks are no longer as valuable because they're getting close to 100% wins. This benchmark grabbed a bunch of freelancing engineering tasks from Upwork, the like do tasks get paid to service, $1 million of tasks from Upwork, and they test different models to see if they can solve the tasks as spec'd out by the post on Upwork, and then calculate how much money they theoretically could have made solving those tasks. And what happened here that was really interesting, remember, this was published by OpenAI. I clicked the link from their page. They commissioned this study. SWE Lancer is their benchmark. Claude beat them. Yellow is Claude. They lost their own benchmark. I think that's insane. I genuinely can't believe they published this like that. Like, what? They have a deeper breakdown down here where it gets a little bit more damning, where they show the different types of tasks and the success rates of them. Here, with server-side logic, they admittedly only had 17 tasks that were server-side logic. GPT-4o and o1 solved 24% of them, not even. Sonnet got over 40. That's insane. To be fair, the manager tasks, Claude did slightly worse at, but it won all of the IC tasks, and 4o could not handle UI stuff at all. It solved one of those problems. Fascinating study. So if theoretically 3.5 was to become an open model when 4 drops, there's now an open model that's better than anything shipped by OpenAI. They're now having their hand forced to open source some stuff too. And it seems like Sam knows this. It seems like he understands the writing on the wall, because he did a poll a few days ago here. For our next open source project, would it be more useful to do an O3 mini level model that's small but needs to run on GPUs, or the best phone size model that they can do? Please help me rig this, guys. I think the vote's over. Oh yeah, we're at the final results. Cool, O3 mini one. Never mind. I would have been very upset if the phone size model won. It was ahead for a bit. Models that you can run on phones are cool. They're not the future. Like, 5G is getting more and more prevalent. GPUs are getting more and more efficient. But the expectations we have of what they can do and what these models do is going up and up. As the Apple privacy nerd, believe me, I wish I could run everything on my own phone. Not realistic. We need better big open models before we can start dreaming of those ones. My roommate got R1 running on his phone at 1 to 2 tokens per second. We don't need that. And we don't even, even if it was 20, the quality would go down enough. I don't care. Back to Grok, though. Let me try to find some nice things to say. The site's pretty. It's kind of funny if your sense of humor is Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy and nothing else. It can search Twitter. I'm trying. I really am here. I also haven't tried the deep search. Let's give that a go. How many corgis are there in the UK? Fancy UI. On the topic of the fancy UI and website, though, I have one other thing I want to make fun of. When I was trying it during the live stream, it was 500ing pretty much the entire time. It's doing a lot of searching here. It's checking a lot of different sources. I can respect that. There was about 500 corgis registered in 2015. I feel like those numbers are not right. Let's do a perplexity for comparison in the background. Also, I can't help but notice it didn't summarize the convo yet. The title still isn't there. I actually made a dumb change to T3 chat where we forgot to send down the summary in the new title in time, but I fixed that within an hour. I don't know how Grok hasn't fixed it yet. Okay. Jesus Christ. Well, it certainly knows how to write something that looks like a research paper, but 2,000 corgis in the UK is hilariously small. Like, that's so hilariously wrong. It's almost beautiful. So while Perplexity is going, I'm going to show off a new favorite thing we added. I built a search engine. It's not a real search engine. It's called Unduck. Video about this coming soon. I added a T3 chat bang. So if I paste this, T3, it auto-posted in T3 chat. Okay, Kennel Club estimates 12,000. Oh, this is Pembroke Welsh Corgis. It's one of the types. Let's switch it to thinking. Well, not thinking, search. Might not trigger that when I do it that way. Let me switch over Flash, search. Cool, there we go. Gemini's Flash search isn't great. Perplexity's still going. Come on. Yeah, there's no way the number is this low. Like population of the UK. 70 million people. There's no way they only have 2,000 corgis. Even like a random set of like unbiased, there would be more than 2,000 corgis with 70 million people. The UK is like the capital of corgis. Flash thinking with search. I've been hesitant to add it to T3 chat because it, how do I put it? It has brutal rate limits, but I do plan on adding the thinking Gemini model soon. It shows thinking a lot more aggressively than I might have guessed. So there was 1,000 registered in 2021. Why are all of these getting this so wrong then? I thought this was a good, easy question for these models. I guess not. This is still going. What? I thought this was an easy question. Yeah, it's my understanding that that number was the registration that year. Okay, I see why they're getting all confused because the language here is really unclear. Are there 1,200 corgis registered total as of 2021, or were there 1,200 registered in the year of 2021? Yeah, this looks like it's the per year numbers. They had nearly 9,000 puppies in 1960. That would have been 9,000 new dogs then. Okay, so all of these are wrong. 2,000's hilariously small because it's 1,200 a year. And corgis, believe me, I wish they lived forever. They don't, but they live a lot more than a fucking year. Refresh Perplexity. It still seems to be going. Okay, no, the UI just froze. Fun. Why is everyone else's UI so broken? Okay. Overall dog population UK is estimated around 13 million. Likely there are several thousand. Cool. So if there's 13 million dogs in the UK, there's no way 2,000 of those are corgis. So everyone else was wrong. It looks like Perplexity wins here. How many dogs are there in the UK? Okay, think about 5 million dogs. If there are 13 million dogs, isn't 1,300 corgis a bit low? Okay. I thought that these research things were good. I also just remembered we could be asking the big boys right now. We're gonna rack up a big bill. I resubbed the $200 tier for a couple things I was testing out. Has questions. First thing to ask a follow-up. Total, both registered and unregistered. An estimate is okay. And we really lost the plot here. I'll ask Grok, how many dogs are there in the UK total? So apparently deep research takes its time, so we'll see. God, I hate the scroll containers here so much. I shouldn't care as much as I care, but now that I've built my own AI chat app, all I can think about is scroll containers. Can we come up with a more realistic estimate? Oh, we lost our what it's doing here. Fun fact about the ChatGPT site, If you're using one of the more expensive things like O1 Pro mode or deep research, if you start another chat or you close the tab or you lose internet connection, it just hard fails. So I gotta be careful to make sure this tab doesn't sleep because that would ruin the whole experiment. Apparently there's 10,000 corgis in the entire world. That's not true. I can name 1,000 myself. If they're counting only purebred, sure. But even then, I think that's really low. Still going. We're at multiple minutes in now, at least 3 on that. Look at that. After giving Gemini a couple hints, it gave a much more realistic number of 10K to 15K. Still kind of crazy how wrong almost all of these were, though. Haha, 4 minutes is what ChatGPT took. There's the Kennel Club registered corgi numbers. During the year, corgis were vulnerable. They represented well under 1% of UK dogs. Mid-range estimate would be 10,000 to 15,000 corgis. That's hilarious that it took that much longer to come to the same conclusion Gemini did. To be fair, I had to hint to Gemini that it's wrong. This did it all by itself after asking me questions, which was kind of cool to see. This is a good answer. OpenAI wins again. And obviously Grok does not. Let's ask it one last follow-up. You can only deep search or think. Interesting. So if there are 13 million dogs in the UK, isn't your estimate about corgi numbers quite low? The search, it just keeps kicking me to the top of the screen for something. I'm not doing anything to trigger that. It's just doing it itself. Ugh. I will say overall, Grok's UI is the prettiest. This is nice and fancy. It doesn't really fit the screen well. I'm on a small screen, admittedly. It's now searched 46 web pages trying to answer my damn question about corgis. I'm so sorry if you watched along this whole time as we're trying to figure out the answer to life's most pressing questions. Is corgi count going to be the bouncing ball of deep search? That's the stupidest sentence I've ever said, possibly. Okay, cool. Even with all of the additional context and searching, Grok insists on being wrong. Their deep search touches a lot of sites. If you want to generate a ton of links, it could be cool for that, I guess. Rest doesn't seem useful, though. If you want to get sentiment checks on some outrage on Twitter, might be good at that, too. But I'm not seeing it for here. Yeah. I don't know. I don't see a lot of promise in this model. I am very curious, once they ship the API for V3, how much people use it in T3 chat and what the sentiment is there. It's hard for us to know for sure until people are actually using them. And the website's never going to give us the proper idea of what the value of these models is. I have a bunch of tests that I've been working on that I can only really do if I can plug the model in via API, which, by the way, if you didn't know, has gotten hilariously easy. Here's our actual production code for T3 chat. I have my model map, which maps the IDs to the specific models for all of the different models. And if I want to add a new one, it's as easy as adding the key, adding the provider, all coming from the AI SDK providers. Models are commoditized. Switching between them has never been easier. I'm just not sure that now creating yet another model that's 10% better at some things, 50% worse at other things, costs the same, if not more. I'm not seeing it. I just don't care. If they start sharing things that are closer to the numbers that they were bragging about, if I can get something that performs this well via API, I'll be sure to post an I was wrong about Grok video. But right now, I'm not feeling wrong about this one. Quick interruption. I've been done recording for a few hours now, but I just got some very interesting news about the Grok 3 experience that needs to be included. Turns out many of the people who were using Grok 3 over the last 2 days, mind you, over the last 2 days, many of them were actually using Grok 2 due to a bug in the web application. And it would say Grok 3 under the prompt and everything, but you were still actually getting Grok 2. Thought this is an important detail because almost certainly some of the things that I was submitting were done via Grok 2. I've seen people being skeptical of whether or not this was true. I can confidently say it was, simply because I've made that same mistake with some of our work on T3 chat. It was never for more than an hour, mind you, but we have made this mistake before. I think that's understandable when you have over a dozen models like we do. It's a little harder to understand when you have 2 models. But I will give them the benefit of the doubt. They made that mistake. They also made the mistake with the test billing page, so checks out. How does this affect the results, though? Before we get to that, I want to call out, I haven't had this confirmed by the team yet, but I'm almost certain that if you did something with thinking, so all the examples I did with thinking before, those were all good and golden. But the non-thinking ones, like the first one I did that had that viral video, that might have been wrong. So I went and regenerated, did another pass, got another answer, and I'll triple check, what model are you? Grok 3. They said this is the one way to absolutely confirm it's using the correct model. So I did that. I have this code. We got to see how it runs, right? Here's my Grok attempt 3 code. Let's see how it does. Spectacular. It fails even more elegantly than it did before. So if you were in my comment section about to leave the, well, it wasn't really Grok 3 comment, yeah, do that with your comment. Some people are saying it's meaningfully better. I've seen a couple people I trust calling that out. But from my experience, it's failing just as hilariously, if not more hilariously than it was before. So, yeah, turns out they made the embarrassing mistake of not actually using the model you clicked on. But that doesn't mean Grok 3 isn't still a bit of a joke. I am sure there are things it is good at. And if people can find those and show them to me, I am down to see them. Code is not one of them. Stop acting like code is one of them. I still think that, generally speaking, the order of events that happens in the AI world is we have a specific company, we'll call them a closed AI, releases something, and it is groundbreaking. And over time, a lot of work is done externally to try and catch up to that quality bar. And this might be way cheaper, by the way. The work from these alternatives might end up being cheaper to use and better and more efficient in a lot of ways. But the straight up intelligence bumps tend to be whatever OpenAI is up to. And it's sad that it's still the case, but big jumps, like percentage wins more than 1%, still tend to come from OpenAI. And once those breakthroughs happen, since they put everything out as papers, sure, we don't get the model, but we get a lot of the knowledge that helped them get there. We'll start getting close again. And as soon as that happens, OpenAI comes out with another one of these like step function wins. That is just a significant win while we've all been fighting just to catch up to where they were up until that point. I think this pattern is going to continue, and that's a good thing because these blue bars, the OpenAI bars, are insanely expensive. And as the industry catches up and commoditizes, it means that the wins they get from these models aren't restricted to the people who can afford to use them. The wins go greater. And we just saw a pretty monumental jump here with R1 getting so close to O1 with an open model that you can run yourself. But I don't think Grok is going to do anything like what they're talking about. They're talking about it like this just happened, like they just surpassed or got above where OpenAI currently is. I'm not seeing it. I don't believe it yet. I could be wrong here, but I'd like to see it. But right now, it just kind of feels like we're here. And if we were to put Anthropic on here, they started a little bit later, got pretty much exactly where OpenAI was. Then they, in this next era, got slightly higher. But now that we're in the thinking era, they just haven't moved. And it's time, it really is. We need Anthropic to make a move. This is how I feel about the trends with quality of AI. We kind of just have to wait for OpenAI to do something crazy, and then we all fight to catch up. It's a good thing overall. I'm not complaining about this. But I'm probably going to stop saying OpenAI is dead, because every time something big enough happens, they leapfrog it really quickly. I'm still shaken from O3 Mini, but that's where I'm at. You were a diehard Claude guy, but O3 Mini pulled you from it. Yeah, I've been similar. I still like Claude in Cursor. Like it's the model I enjoy most when doing quick things within here. It is very nice for that, and it seems better at CSS than other things are. But O3 has been real nice for like hard challenges. The O3 Mini is real bad at CSS. Okay, one last piece. People keep saying that Grok 3 won all these leaderboards. I happen to notice all of them were early Grok 3. That's how I've seen it labeled by everyone who posted. I don't think we got the same model that's being used for all these tests. I just don't. Because I've seen so many examples of it generating code that I can't get it to generate, winning benchmarks I can't get it to compete in, doing things that don't make any sense. I don't believe that we got the actual Grok model. I'm curious to see what ends up happening. Does it end up coming out in a few weeks with updates? Because they promised it was going to improve itself. Who knows what that means? But this does not line up with any of the things I have experienced or that I could get it to do. Grok 3 is currently a model I have no trust or interest in. I have not gotten it to answer anything even vaguely challenging in a way that I have any confidence in, and it is not a model I recommend right now. Keep an eye on the channel, and if you haven't subbed, now's a good time to do it, because if I am wrong, there will be a video following this very shortly where I correct any of the things I was incorrect about. Hopefully this was helpful to you. Keep playing with these models, keep AI generating the future, and until next time, peace nerds.